Welcome to this episode of our program Work Today, where we are having an in-depth look to the local international business line, and please welcome our guest, Mr. Rafael, and we start from Ahram Oman, and of course we all know that in Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, there is now this important Arab summit that is taking place, and Al-Ahram Online just made headline: countries need to combine efforts to face international crisis. This is according to President Sisi. President Sisi delivered a speech before the opening session of the 4th Arab African Summit, which kicked off in Equatorial Guinea, Guinea's capital, Malabo, on Wednesday, where he said that countries need to combine efforts to face different international risks. The president highlighted the refugee crisis, irregular immigration, the increased activity of organized crimes and groups, cross-border drug smuggling, human trafficking, and terrorism. Yes, before proceeding on with our discussion, let me first take this very short break for technical reasons, and we'll come back for discussion. Right, I guess back to where we stopped, and the question here, the significance of this round of the Arab African Summit that is taking place this year in an African country. It has been taking place in Kuwait before, and there was an agreement that was signed in Kuwait before. This round, the importance and significance of this round, the importance and significance of holding this round in Africa.
Well, it's one round is held in Asia, in any other country, whether in Africa or not, and the other, normally it is in a black African country. Forget about the importance of this round particularly or else, but the idea is to keep connected with Africa particularly. We've been ignoring Africa for some long time, and President Sisi thought intelligently that Africa is important. And that's why he does not fail to attend any meeting regarding, well, African unity, some Arab African summits, what have you, just to keep connected with African countries and African leaders, because there are, as he mentioned in his speech yesterday, a lot of common crisis that needs to be tackled and all together, cannot be handled individually, but the countries must join forces to overcome such crisis. So
yes, indeed. As you said, there are joint crises that very much link the Arab world and the African one. And I guess we are all going through several changes that really need to combine our efforts. If we speak about this particular issue, how do you view what took place on Tuesday of some of the withdrawal of some countries, and how would this really reflect on the atmosphere of the integration that we really need to achieve?
Well, I don't know why was this subject brought eventually. I mean, we've never had this problem before about this desert republic, barely recognized by maybe 1 or 2 countries worldwide, and we know decades ago that there is a big problem between them and Morocco. So I don't know whether it was a diplomatic slip or maybe it was intended. I cannot assess it now, but it was not right in the first beginning. And as we heard, there was a compromise about just putting a plate with their name and not attending. Well, I mean, this was not, in my opinion, I'm not a diplomatic person, but I think this was a small mistake on the diplomatic side. So I wish it's not repeated anymore.
Rather, if we take it from another side, not the diplomatic one, and say, how would this really affect and reflect on the aim, the objective that we really need to achieve, which is integration, which is having to combine our efforts in both regions.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about everybody putting their hands and heads together, and then all of a sudden something like that comes up and 7 countries just withdraw from the meetings, and then there's a problem. So of course it was not a nice move. I do not blame the countries that, of course, Morocco, and the countries that took its part and withdrew with Morocco. But I wish that these small issues be handled before the actual summit takes place.
Exactly.
I mean, it can be discussed and then they agree on a formula to make everybody happy and to make summits like that successful.
Exactly. Particularly that they do really reflect on the international arena.
Of course.
The Guardian in Egypt unearths 7,000-year-old lost city, and it says this is, of course, a good note, particularly that we are going through, hopefully, a successful season for tourism this year. And archaeologists discovered hot stools in 15 huge graves dating from the First Dynasty period in Sohag province. And it says that Egypt has unearthed a city more than 7,000-year-old and a cemetery dating back to its First Dynasty in the southern province of Sohag, that is according to the Antiquities Ministry. The find could be a boon for Egypt's sailing tourism industry, which has suffered series of setbacks. But we're not speaking this year or at this quarter of the setbacks. We are starting again, starting fresh, starting hopefully with all our hopes and aspiration. How do you view such a discovery? How would it really give a boost?
Of course, it's a great discovery. And mind you, as we read and as we probably know, most of us, that Egypt of today is floating on a huge mass of antiquities, of monuments, of temples, of cities, and so we have treasures underground. And they are eventually bound to be discovered and unearthed. It is, of course, great, and especially that it is rather big, and it belongs to a period where not a lot of monuments are available in this particular period. The pre-dynastic history is not very rich as far as monuments and facts are concerned. So it is a great discovery, and although the what we call the cultural tourism represents only a small percentage of the tourism worldwide, but it is very important, and I'm sure it will have its very, very positive reactions on the tourism, as you rightly said, probably by next year or something.
Right. If we speak about the tourism industry in itself, and we have been classified by the United States finally as a safe country.
Yes.
Plus, of course, some of other factors, lifting of some of the European countries to their hold to their travels to several areas in Egypt. What do we need really at this particular point to take care of just before starting again with our tourism?
First of all, tourism has no upper limit. It has no, sky is its limit. I mean, we can double, triple, quadruple, and you name it. The number of tourists that can come to Egypt. We have the infrastructure, all kinds of tourisms. I mean, we're talking cultural tourisms, we're talking beaches, we're talking sea, we're talking underwater, we're talking medical, you name it. All sorts of tourism exists in Egypt. The infrastructure exists, and it needs a little bit of maybe, let me call it, education, perhaps, of the people.
Culture.
Culture. Well, I don't want
Change
to...
in culture.
Exactly, culture, so that the people understand that this is their life, and the way they treat the guests should change in a way to make their coming more and more and more appealing, and so they need, I mean, we need very few small, tuning up, but we have the infrastructure, and we pray to God that this can, if really tourism gets back to its force, I mean, we should be making a hell of a lot of income through
Hopefully,
it. Yes,
hopefully.
yes,
Let's
yes,
just cross our fingers.
Yeah.
World Bulletin and Tunisia's president says U.S. drones fly over Libya's border. This is, of course, returning to regional events, yes. And Tunisian President Baji Qaed Essebsi has confirmed the U.S. was flying surveillance drones along border with war-torn Libya. In a televised, or rather in a television interview late Tuesday, Essebsi said that the U.S. had flown unmanned drones for reconnaissance operation along the Tunisian-Libyan border. Yes. Would that mean that the United States is preparing to interfere in the situation in Libya? Would that mean that they are just surveying the situation in Libya, so they would really think how to put a hand or a leg or whatsoever they want there? How do you view that?
I'm sure the United States want to put not only one leg, but two and three, but I look at this matter a little bit differently. I think that this is a request of Tunisia. They requested to be sort of defended against the probable infiltration of terrorists into the Tunisian territory. So they have requested the United States to help monitor the borders, so to defend themselves against terrorism leaving Libya and going into Tunisia. I think, again, this is my opinion, that this is the request of Libya. But I'm sure that this will help if ever the United States is serious about its fight against Daesh particularly. Okay, reconnaissance is always useful, gives you some information, but mainly I think, again, that Tunisia wants to secure their borders with Libya.
There is a kind of coordination to secure borders, particularly that we're speaking about countries, of several countries that are pretty much affected by the situation. And there is Egypt. Then why the coordination with the United States and not, for instance, with Egypt?
Well, I think Egypt is capable of securing its western borders. And I'm sure there is some kind of cooperation with the military in Libya to achieve this. And we don't need the help of foreign countries to do this. But if we ever need it, they will probably we will get it from somewhere else. But I think that we are, Egypt and the military in Libya and the army, Haftar's army, are doing this exact job on the east side of Libya, and the states are helping Tunisia to do it on the other side.
Right, the Daily Star and Aleppo civilian try to flee as Syrian army advances, and it says dozens of civilians try to flee rebel-held East Aleppo overnight, but were forced back by gunfire as the Syrian army pressed an offensive to recapture the whole city. Now, the situation in Syria is a little bit changing, and I guess towards the regime.
Yes.
How far do you think this would continue with an election of a new president plus a new Secretary General of the United States, which will take place shortly? Mm-hmm. Also, the upcoming elections of presidential elections in France. How do you view the atmosphere in this area? Would it change towards or in favor of Syrian regime, the Syrian rebels? How would you read the upcoming stage for Syria?
I think that considering as you mentioned, the different conditions in the states in Western Europe, France particularly, I think that the Syrian regime is getting more grounds, is gaining favorable positions, and with the help of the Russians, they are sort of recapturing a lot of lost grounds and lost cities since 2011. Yeah. And in my opinion, for the coming 2 or 3 months, things will go in favor of the Syrian regime. Let me just comment on the wording of this report. Actually, it is not the Syrian regime that forced the people who wanted to flee back. But I think that it was very much the rebels that did not want them to go out because they are using them as human shields.
Well, I guess that we all know how the international media deal with the situation according to each policy of each country.
Exactly.
And its owner, of course.
Sure.
So my final question here would be a kind of nearing or rapprochements between the United States and Russia, particularly with the existence of Trump. How would that really reflect on Middle East issues?
Definitely it will be better for all concerned. It will again, it is my conviction and opinion, it will give more room for the existing regimes to work out their own problems depending on their own people rather than depending on foreign countries playing against each other. That's all.
Right. I guess we have to end it here and wait for more news to come to us.
They never stop.
Mr. Raouf Ghaffar, political and economic analyst, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the top stories coming right after this program.